name is Reese Byfield and I have been a Muslim for 14 years. I was very anti-Islam, very anti-Muslim, and did not look at Islam in a good light. If someone was to mention the word Muslim to me at that time, what would come into my mind was something towards being backwards. It was more very much the kind of Islamophobia and racism was more like, I'm meant to dislike Muslims. There was a Stephen Hawking's lecture and it was about the beginning of the universe. So he was talking about like the Big Bang and everything and all his research that he had done at that time. In my head, I'm just coming to the conclusion of he's going to say God created the universe. And before watching this video, I was ready to be an atheist. So I'm saying Stephen Hawking stopped me from being an atheist. My name is Reese Byfield and I have been a Muslim for 14 years. My journey and what was going on around that time was what it was like to be in year 10, year 11 at school. I was very anti-Islam, very anti-Muslim, and did not look at Islam in a good light. If someone was to mention the word Muslim to me at that time, what would come into my mind was, something perhaps linked towards being backwards. I'd say what was the typical tropes of that time, which were like terrorism and things like that. But I think this wasn't necessarily my personal beliefs, because I had Muslim friends. It wasn't like I didn't like Muslims.
Also hearing that there have been further incidents at Russell Square.
So I was born in 1992, and some of the films of that period or around that period, like for instance, Back to the Future, it has negative connotations about Muslims. But of course, post 9/11, which is, I believe I was in like my penultimate year of primary school, that's when obviously the heat really rose up and that negativity was there. And on top of that, when I was in year 7, my dad had just missed the 7/7 attacks. Had he gone to work on time, he would have died, because one of the trains was the train he was meant to be on. But that day, he got late for work, so he just missed the train. And we thought that he actually had died because he was boarding the next train because he was late, and the train he should have got on was the one that was attacked, and naturally everyone's phone lines were cut off. He was trapped underground for a while. All of that stuff happened. I don't think I immediately thought it was Muslims who did it. I don't think, like I said, I think it was more very much the kind of Islamophobia and racism was more like, I'm meant to dislike Muslims, but I didn't actually dislike Muslims, if you see what I mean. It was more of a cultural thing. Religion was coming into the spotlight, and it was those kind of things that kind of gave rise and legitimacy to the new atheist movement, because their core attacks were pretty much on Christianity and Islam. Because of this, it kind of made me question, is there God? Does God exist? Should I believe in anything? Should I be like these guys who don't believe in anything? And at that point, like in that age, science was really important to me. Like science was this subject where I didn't even need to go to the lesson, I would get an A. I was very interested into what does science have to say about this? Is there any scope for God? So I remember, and this is like the beginning of the journey. There was a Stephen Hawking's lecture. It was 3 hours on YouTube. So imagine a 15-year-old watching a 3-hour physics lecture. And I mean, the lecture wasn't like a proper physics lecture. It was delivered for like the laity, and it was about the beginning of the universe. So he was talking about like the Big Bang and everything and all his research that he had done at that time. And as the video got on, I was like, in my head, I'm just coming to the conclusion of he's going to say God created the universe. Because we're just getting to a stage where that's just becoming the most rational answer. And before watching this video, I was ready to be an atheist. Right? I was ready to be an atheist. So I'm saying Stephen Hawking stopped me from being an atheist. So I'm watching this video and he gets to the end of, the Big Bang, the beginning of the universe, and his solution to the beginning was, it just came into being. There isn't an answer. And I was just like, this is the most disappointing ending I have ever watched. And for you to not say God is pure arrogance. That was my take-home point. I'm not saying science proves God, because that's impossible. That's not the job of science. But for you to say, this is the best answer that science can give, and effectively knowledge, science cannot go, this is where science ends. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that you need something else to fill in the gaps, right? And I'm not saying a God of the gaps. I'm saying you need to bring in a different discipline. You need some philosophy, or you need some theology to do the next steps, because science can't. When you look around us, everything is reliant on something else. That's prevalent throughout society, prevalent throughout the world. So how can we say that it all just came from nothing? And there's not something that was outside of that cycle? And just in a nutshell, those were the kind of things that were going through my head, and that's what started that journey. And yeah, I looked into Christianity because that's the religion of my land. But the concept of a man being God just seemed something I couldn't accept. I looked into Hinduism, I looked into Sikhism, and every religion I looked through, it just didn't resonate with me. I saw issues in it. I saw things that I couldn't accept. That this is not something that I can dedicate myself to. I was kind of debating whether I should look into Islam, but then what happened was a friend just said to me, why don't you just read the Quran? Just give it a go. And after some time, I decided to do that. Now, obviously I couldn't go home with the Quran. So what I did is, there was this website called sacredtexts.com or something like that, and they had like every religion's like holy book on there. First, I started from Surah Fatiha. Now, very arrogantly and ignorantly, I kind of just read Surah Fatiha and was like, this is basically like every other religion, praises God, tells us to follow Him, tells us to worship Him, that there's like a correct path and a wrong path. I was like, there's nothing really different here. I remember I'm coming from the attitude of, like, I have a negative impression of Islam. I've already read a whole bunch of religious texts, so I'm seeing common themes and things like that. And because I'm on this journey, I'm looking for something different. But then I started to read more. I carried on reading. And now we're reading through the first 5 surahs of the Quran. That's when I'm picking up on these common themes, right? Because obviously I've grown up in England. My mum's Christian. I've heard Christian stories, I've read the Bible, and I'm hearing about all these Judaic prophets. I know about Abraham, I know about Moses, I'm here reading these stories again. But the stories are slightly different. There's a clear message that's being said in these first 5 surahs of the Quran. Allah is talking to the Christians and Jews quite directly. I'm reading it and I'm seeing this message. And so I got more interested. Then I carried on reading. And what really brought me in and what really caught my eye...
The work of supporting new Muslims continues year-round, and you can be part of it. Over the past 5 years, IRA has been blessed at being able to introduce Islam to more than 400,000 people. These individuals need our constant support as they navigate their new faith. Your contribution of £50 to support one new Muslim gives them essential guidance and support. Click the link below, share the video, and let's go back to that interview, shall we?
Was the laws and commands in the Quran. That these laws and commands weren't just like some of the things that were in other religions, or things that were quite arbitrary, right? Like some religions have religious practices or rituals which, while they're there to worship God, they don't necessarily make sense. In my father's religion, there's the 5 Ks, right? And men are told to wear like some trousers, cover their trousers. They're told to wear the bangle and these things. But there doesn't seem to be, other than, obviously there's reasons for these things, but there doesn't seem to be like a tangible benefit to them. Something that makes sense at a rational level. Whereas what I saw with the commands of the Quran in terms of our like social interactions and what we're meant to do and how we worship God in some sense as well, everything made perfect sense. There was clear-cut, tangible benefits that if society was to follow this, it would bring about social benefit. And that just hit me immediately. I was like, this is clear intentionality from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This text is something that is telling me about the importance of God, telling me about how I can improve my life now, practically. Not just like worship God and you'll go to heaven. No, it's I will improve your life now, I'll improve society's life, and I will show you how you can get to Jannah. And I was like, okay, I need to keep reading this book. Started watching lectures on the Day of Judgment and the signs of the hour and that kind of thing. And I actually think perhaps that could be used more in da'wah, because that really impacted me. Leading up to my shahada, it was very much a sense of urgency, a sense of thing. I was absolutely terrified of Jahannam. Absolutely. It was like the Day of Judgment is coming tomorrow. That's how I felt. It's gonna come any second. I was thinking, the day that the signs of the hour are coming and all of it is gonna hit. I started panicking. That's what really got me there. It was that I could die, everything could end. That's what I just need to save myself. I believe in this. I cannot go any longer without it. I was like, I just don't care. I've got to become Muslim. I remember I called my friend. I was like, I need to take my shahada. He was like, okay, I'm gonna bring a sheikh. We'll come tomorrow. I was like, no, today, bro. Today. We're not wasting any time. For anyone who's thinking about becoming a Muslim, simple question, what's stopping you? What's holding you back? And I'm pretty sure that those reasons are really trivial. You need to be authentic to yourself, true to yourself. If you believe in this, you can't let it wait. You cannot let it linger around, because perhaps that opportunity will be taken away from you. Who's to say that opportunity is to come again? Who's to say you will have the opportunity? Because at the end of the day, it's better you take a step towards Allah, and like the Prophet Muhammad says, take a step and Allah will come towards you. And, take a few and Allah will run towards you. So when I took my shahada, it was in many ways a rebirth, and there was a lot that needed to change. And although when I took my shahada, I felt that instant transformation, that I felt like a lot of weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Some things were instant and some things took time, because I needed to change my whole way of life, and I needed to change my habits and all of these things. It took time. The immediate change was being humbled, becoming someone who's ready to learn. Alhamdulillah, I had the benefit of studying with a few scholars and developing myself, and I volunteer for a charity called Revert Reality, and here I participate in the Brothers Circle to give some reminders to them, give them structured advice to help them develop in their knowledge. First time my parents found out I was Muslim was not because I told them. It was because they discovered it. So what had happened was I had a topi, right? And I had it in my coat. And I left my coat there. My dad picked up my coat. And for whatever reason, he decided to go through it. And he found a topi inside. And he just comes into the room and goes, "Reese, is this yours?" And at this time, I'd been Muslim for 2 years and they didn't know. I'd kept it secret. And a lot of my Muslim friends were like, "You need to tell your parents. You need to tell your parents." So I just took this opportunity, this is my time. Allah has facilitated this, and clearly there'll be some benefit in it, that I don't have to run around, because I was doing a madness, bro. I'd wear a thobe and I'd tuck it up under my coat, and then as soon as I got on the bus, I let the thobe drop down. So, I thought, obviously there's going to be some hardship that comes from this, but there'll be some benefit that comes from it as well. So I just said to him, "Yes." And he looked at me. He said, "Are you joking?" I said, "No, it's mine." And then he just went skits, bro. Obviously there was naturally a lot of swearing, a lot of anger, a lot of aggression in that. My mum was like, "What's going on?" So she comes upstairs. And then my dad's just like, "Do you know what your son's done? He's become a Muslim." Now, my mum, although there's all these things going on, she doesn't really have anything against Muslims. For her, it's like, it's just a religion she doesn't understand. She's a bit upset, she's a bit concerned because she doesn't know what that means for me. She's more concerned about how is his life impacted? What are the impacts for me? Those are her concerns in that moment. She's thinking like, is he going to become like some sort of hermit? Is he going to join some terrorist group? Like, what's he going to do? By the time they found out, I was 19. And then 2 years after that, we have the rise of ISIS, right? And then, so you can imagine, I had a difficult time throughout this process, right? All the like conflicts and negativity that I'm having with my parents about me being Muslim, we've got the backdrop of 9/11/7/7, we've got the media nonsense going on, and then we've got the boys in black in Sham. So we had a lot to deal with. And what had happened was there were actually videos that had come out about parents talking about their kids who had joined ISIS and died. And I think they were on BBC called like My Jihadi Son or something like that. And yeah, well, I had to deal with that. There was verbal abuse, there was violence, there was a lot of blackmailing things going on. There was times where people were trying to force me to drink alcohol, these kind of things. But there was also misunderstanding. The way I look at it in retrospect, it was very much like there was definitely better ways I could have handled situations, but a lot of it was emotional and cultural responses that needed handling properly. And I would say it's not that my parents are bad people, and I'm a 17, 18-year-old just arguing back, and that heightens it. Especially when we were talking about something that's like particularly for my dad, something that's like a cultural taboo. Like for you're an Indian who's chosen a Pakistani religion. You've basically betrayed your bloodline, right? Like that's how he's feeling about it. And my thing is to argue with him. I'm adding fuel to the fire now. So it's not because he's a bad guy. And yeah, it got very difficult for a good 2 to 3 years. But what came from that, if anything, was obviously naturally initially a deterioration of the relationship. But eventually, when it kind of really reached a bad point, and yeah, there was a lot of bad things that happened in that time, but what did come from that was just a serious conversation where we basically had to emotionally reconnect as father and son. And I said to him, I said, listen, Dad, we've reached a point where either I'm not your son and you're not my dad, or we agree to just leave this difference aside and we talk about what's important to me and you. I'm saying to you, look, this topic is the issue. You can still be you with your beliefs and I can still be me with my beliefs. We just don't need to let that impact our relationship. Neither one of us is going to budge on our religious or philosophical perspectives. So we need to give that up. We either decide, is that more important to have that debate, or is the relationship more important? And once he saw it like that, that was the starting point of us rebuilding that relationship. When I open the door now, my dad opens the door, the first thing we do is have a hug. Yeah, that animosity is gone. We have understanding now, and that understanding came about from me taking a mature approach to the situation, getting him to see my perspective and appreciating his perspective, showing that, look, I'm still your son. And I'm actually living a better life. My life is improving. If you want good for me as your son, you'll see that this is the way. Once my family knew about me being a Muslim, that's when they really started to see the positive changes. So I was being driven towards something. Whereas before that, it was like I was just winging life, just kind of going through the motions. Where now it's like, yeah, there was strategy, there was thinking. Life was purposeful. It had intention.
We don't know which way to go, 'cause we're just ordinary people. Maybe we should take it slow, take it slow. Ordinary people, take it slow. no movie, no. No fancy tale conclusion, no. It gets more confusing every day. Sometimes it's heaven sent, then I head back to hell again. And I